Hi there kit fans, it's Louise with you today and welcome along. Thank you for checking out this video. I'm sharing a 9x12 scrapbook layout, and the reason I've mainly focused on 9x12s this month is that I did have a little bit of trouble with this particular kit. I mentioned earlier in a video that I'm more of a brights kind of scrapper. I do struggle a little bit with those more pastel colors. It's not that I dislike pastels, it's just that I find them really hard to work with. Bright colors seem to attract me more. I'm sure that says something about my personality, but let's roll with it. So today I also wanted to challenge myself to create on a black background. I think because there's lots of shimmer and bright sort of pops of colour in this particular collection, I wanted to make myself, again, get out of my comfort zone. I'm already using pastels, so why not actually create with a black background as well? Now, I definitely knew with this particular patterned paper that it needed to be fussy cut. There was just something about those little elements surrounded by those florals that just screamed at me to cut them out. And if you've watched any of my videos, you'll know by now I'm not a huge fan of fussy cutting, but this is about the amount that I can deal with. So working on that small section, I don't like to cut too much too often, so that's about as far as I like to take fussy cutting. Now it's at this point where I quite like the opposite side of this paper, and I'm not going to fussy cut all of those elements. So I decide that I need to dampen down my black background a little bit. I've cut some random size strips, and all I'm going to do is just, again, lay them out at different intervals. So I didn't want them to be strictly the same distance apart. I didn't want them to be all the same size. I wanted sort of that mix of black and this beautiful purple patterned paper in the background. And I really do love how this has turned out. It certainly was not how I intended this layout to start, but I think this is actually one of my favorites from the month. It's got that real striking sort of background with that cross of the purple and black. And then as you're about to see, I'm going to go ahead and put my cluster together, but I also want to get a little bit mixed media in the background. It just needed that something else. So that's sort of where I'm headed with this. I'm thinking, okay, background's good. I love what I've got going on here. I just need to enhance that a little bit more. And you could see at the start that I had a bit of a play around with how I was going to cluster these elements. I thought of almost like a grid style, but I end up going with this singular cluster right in the middle and building background around it. So I do love how this one's coming along. It's really just at the moment playing around, adding layers until I'm quite satisfied with how it's looking. And you can see this is my very technical storage element at the moment, filled with rubbish, and it's just an empty cardboard box that I keep stashed there if I want to add dimension into that background, which in this case is what I wanted to do. All right, this is looking good. I'm happy with this. I have a spot for some journaling. I have my cluster put together, which I find for me personally when I'm creating makes it that little bit easier for me to add my background mixed media. If I know where my elements are going to go, I simply build that around the cluster so that, yeah, I'm not wasting product. There's nothing going to be tucked behind the photo, and I get a really good idea of where everything's going to sit on the page. Now, this little banner at the bottom was not how I initially intended to go, but I needed to add a title, and I knew that it was going to be quite busy in the background, so I couldn't put my title straight on my page. I had to make my title stand out a little bit. So that's where that banner came in, and the banner is actually a piece of the packaging that came this month. All right, let's have a look at some stencil work and some paste in the background. So this is a Vicky Bouton stencil that we had received previously in a kit, and I love it because it's this beautiful floral, but I didn't want to just put florals everywhere. I just wanted to have this singular flower and a couple of those leaves protruding from the side. So what I've done is I've just taken some washi tape and I've masked off the areas that I don't actually want to use on the stencil. So this is a great Pardon me. This is a great little tip if you do have a stencil that you love, but you may not want to use the whole stencil. So you can see that I'm just spreading little bits of that paste around the background until I'm quite happy with the positioning. And you'll notice that that upper section, I'm actually not adding any in there because that's where my cluster is going to go. So allowing that to dry, and then that is this layout finished. I hope that you enjoyed that. Thank you so much for watching, and please make sure if you haven't already that you hit that